The rain-washed morning light spilled across the city as though trying to cleanse the loneliness hidden inside glass towers, but even daylight seemed to hesitate at the doorstep of Alastair Crown's penthouse office. Inside, the billionaire CEO sat surrounded by silent screens, untouched reports, and an emptiness that echoed louder than any boardroom argument. He had everything: wealth, reputation, and power, yet each day felt like a hollow hallway he wandered alone. That fragile quiet shattered the moment a folded piece of paper was slipped under the reception desk downstairs. The handwriting was crooked, childish, and trembling with hope. "Please visit Daddy. He's lonely." It was signed by 3 little girls, triplets, whose world had just narrowed to the walls of a hospital room and the fear of losing their father. And in the middle of the holiday rush, between wealth and despair, a simple note would change not only their lives, but his. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Echoes of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. The story truly began with Nurse Maren Halden, a woman whose compassion shone brighter than any Christmas light in the pediatric ward. She found the triplets Ariel, Nola, and Faith huddled together near the vending machine, whispering in anxious little breaths. Their father, Rowan Everhart, a widowed construction supervisor, had collapsed on site from a heart condition he ignored for too long. The girls were too young to understand medical charts, but old enough to feel the cold terror of maybe losing the only parent they had left. Maren crouched beside them, recognizing in their tear-streaked faces something she had carried herself once: the fear of being forgotten by the world. When they shyly handed her the note addressed to the CEO who owned the construction company Rowan worked for, Maren didn't hesitate. She knew what the girls didn't: Alastair Crown was notorious for distancing himself from anything personal. But something inside her whispered that the note needed to reach him anyway. When Alastair received the paper, he stared at it for a long moment, as though the crooked letters had pierced through the armor he spent years forging. For most people, Christmas meant warmth, togetherness, and the smell of pine. For him, it meant memories he'd buried: parents lost in a winter accident, a childhood spent drifting through relatives' homes, and an adulthood where success became his shield against vulnerability. He built an empire but never built a home. Yet somehow, 3 trembling little lines, "Please visit Daddy, he's lonely," pulled him out of the fortress of glass and steel he hid behind. At the hospital, Maren was decorating the pediatric hallway with paper snowflakes the kids had colored. The place smelled faintly of ginger cookies from the volunteer kitchen, but the tension was still there, the quiet fear that clings to every hospital in December. Rowan lay sleeping, pale from exhaustion, while the triplets sat by his side, each holding a corner of the same worn-out stuffed rabbit their mother had given them years before. When Alastair entered, unsure, awkward, and completely out of place in his flawless suit, the girls looked up with a mixture of awe and confusion. They didn't know he was powerful. They only knew he was someone who might help their dad. Alastair swallowed his discomfort and stepped inside. The sight of the fragile family melted something old and rigid inside him. Rowan woke, startled, then embarrassed, apologizing for missing work and explaining between coughs that he simply couldn't afford more hospital days. Alastair listened, really listened, for the first time in years. It hit him hard: the man lying before him had built the foundations of buildings Alastair claimed credit for, yet he struggled to keep his own foundation steady. Guilt threaded through the CEO's chest like ice. But Maren stepped forward, her gentle voice wrapping around the room like a warm blanket. She spoke about Rowan's dedication, his girls' worry, and how loneliness eats at the human soul more than illness ever could. Her eyes flicked to Alastair with a quiet plea, not for charity, but for humanity. And something shifted. The next morning, the hospital stirred with whispers. Alastair Crown had returned, without cameras, without assistants, without anything except bags of decorations, warm blankets, gifts, and the soft awkwardness of a man rebuilding a part of himself he didn't know still existed. He followed Maren's lead, helping hang garlands, placing toys beneath the ward's little Christmas tree, and even kneeling to listen to the triplets' excited chatter about Santa, snow angels, and how they wished their daddy would smile again. As days passed, Alastair became part of the hospital's rhythm. He learned that Ariel loved drawing stars, Nola collected shiny buttons, and Faye wanted to be a doctor just like Maren. He learned Rowan's heart condition was manageable but required surgery, one he couldn't afford. Quietly, anonymously, Alastair arranged for it to be covered. When Rowan found out, tears filled his eyes, making him look years younger. He clasped Alistair's hand with the gratitude of a man who had carried too much alone. But perhaps the greatest change happened inside Alistair himself. The hospital became a place where he learned to breathe again, a place where Marin's warm laughter and steady presence began filling cracks he thought were permanent. She reminded him of something he'd forgotten, that kindness is not weakness, that connection is not a liability, and that even the most guarded hearts can thaw. On Christmas Eve, the ward glowed with soft lights, handmade crafts, and the smell of hot cocoa. Rowan, recovering well, sat up for the first time, the girls climbing into his arms with joy bursting through every giggle. Marin stood nearby, tired but smiling, her eyes sparkling in the warm light. And Alistair, once a man defined by loneliness, found himself standing among them, feeling something he hadn't felt since childhood, belonging. He realized then that Christmas didn't arrive in his life through grand events, it arrived through a nurse who refused to ignore 3 frightened girls, through a family brave enough to hope, through a note written in shaky letters. It arrived through small acts of courage, compassion, and second chances.